And again, Michael, what voters need to understand, especially black voters, Donald Trump does not give a damn about police accountability. Remember, his Justice Department, they wanted to pull back on consent decrees. And so folks can sit here and dance around this stuff and play games with it. When he is openly talking about bringing back stop and frisk, that right there is a non-starter. No one should be remotely consider voting for this fool.
Well, any black person considering voting for Donald Trump needs to have their head examined. They're out of their minds and don't understand history, don't understand politics. Donald Trump in April 2024 said he would give police 100% immunity from criminal prosecution for doing their job. When he was at the National Association of Black Journalists, and Rachel Scott asked him about Sonia Massey, they asked him about Sonia Massey. He didn't have a good answer about what would happen to the officer who shot and killed Sonia Massey. Okay, and when you look at this, you have Attorney Benjamin Crump there. We know the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed the House of Representatives by a vote of 220 to 212. No Republicans voted for the bill. It was Senator Tim Scott who blocked it. But what people have to understand is a lot of white people in this country think the police department is working just the way it's supposed to work. And now you have attack ads that Republicans have launched attacking Vice President Kamala Harris for saying the protests during when the protests were happening after the killing of George Floyd. She said, these were peaceful protesters. The majority of the protests were peaceful, even though you did have, some fires here and there to take place. The majority of the protests were peaceful. A different approach has to be taken with this, okay? Because a lot of the majority of the people in the House and the Senate that got to vote for a bill that reforms police are white. And they represent a lot of white people that think things are just fine right now. You got to talk about the white people who have been unjustly shot and killed by police as well. Elevate those stories. Bring those white crying mothers into Senate hearings. Have them testify. Bring those pictures of those white people unjustly killed by white people as well. The way that they're approaching this, if you just make this a black thing, you're going to lose, because most of the people who vote for this are white. They represent constituents who think, a lot of them think everything is just fine the way it is.
Folks, testimony has concluded in the first week of the trial of three former cops who are on trial for the murder of Tyre Nichols. Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, and Justin Smith have all pleaded not guilty to charges that they deprived Nichols of his rights through excessive force and failure to intervene and obstructed justice through witness tampering. Nichols was pulled over in January 2023 and led the cops on a brief chase before getting yanked out of his car. Police video showed officers viciously attacking Nichols when they got him out of the vehicle. Today, the families of Tyre Nichols, Sonia Massey, and Breonna Taylor joined the attorney Ben Crump here at the Congressional Black Caucus addressing the issue of systemic police reform in this country. Crump expressed extreme disappointment for what he said was a lack of substantial changes despite numerous instances of police brutality across the country.
Tragically, since George Floyd died, we really thought we were at a turning point, that we were going to get systematic police reform in America that had eluded us for decades. We hadn't had systematic police reform in the United States of America since Lyndon Baines Johnson Great Society legislation in the 1960s. We thought after Rodney King was killed, Rodney King was brutalized in the 1980s in Los Angeles, we would get systematic police reform. It did not happen. We thought surely after Michael Brown and Ferguson, hands up, don't shoot, that we would get systematic police reform in America. It didn't happen. We thought certainly after George Floyd was tortured to death on video during a pandemic, and everybody saw it, Congressman Horsford, we thought we were going to get police reform in America. It didn't happen. And then after Tyre Nichols was brutally beaten by 5 police officers, we thought we would get systematic police reform. It didn't happen. And I can only fathom, had we got that reform, how many families up here like Sonia Massey and others would have been spared their loved one becoming another hashtag. It is an urgent call. An urgent call. How many more exhibits, America, do we have to give you before we say we have to have some reform on these officers? If we would have had the National Registry, Sonia Massey's family would not have lost her just because she was a black woman having a mental health crisis, because that officer who had been in 6 police departments in 4 years would not have been on the force, and he would not have had the ability with a gun and a badge to shoot Sonia Massey in her face after she said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus."
Now, folks, this is another story which is absolutely crazy. So people were emailing this here. And so Javion McGee is a trucker out of Chicago who was found at the base of a tree in North Carolina. This video has gone viral, and so we want to play this video for you. Check this out.
Hey y'all, I would have never thought I had to make this kind of post on my TikTok, but my family desperately needs your help. This is my little cousin, Javion McGee. He's from Chicago, Illinois. He was 21 years old and would have been 22 in a few weeks. He was found hanging from a tree in Henderson, North Carolina yesterday. He drove trucks, so that was his reason for even being out there. The police officers are trying to say that he went to Walmart and purchased the rope and hung himself. We obviously don't believe that, and we are just asking for your help to push his story out there. This isn't covered on any local platforms. No news stations, radio, none of that. So we're trying to push it out there. We really need your help. The police officers in the coroner's office are giving us a hard time, not allowing his mom to identify the body. At one point, they told her she can't identify the body due to COVID. And then the next day, today, they told her the father has to give her permission for that, which he said that he would. She asked if they could send her pictures at least. They told her yes, and then turned around and told her, "Oh, I don't think that you want to see your son like that." Come on. Like, this is just very devastating for my family, and we really need to push this story out there. So if y'all could please repost this video, keep saying his name, Javion McGee, hashtag justice for Javion, and we are going to fight for him, and we are standing behind my cousin 100%, and they're not getting away with this. So please, share this video. Thank you.
Now, folks, just a few moments ago, Reverend Dr. William Barber sent me this statement here. He is calling for a thorough investigation into his death. The death of a young person is hard and painful enough, but in this circumstance, we must have truth and transparency. Hanging, whatever the cause, is not a form of death that can be easily dismissed, particularly here in the South, where it has been used as a weapon of terror against black families for generations. I join attorneys Daniels and Merritt, of course, as they seek transparency, truth, and justice for Javion McGee and his family. We must and will find out what has happened. The family is represented by Harry Daniels, Lee Merritt, and also a North Carolina attorney, Jason Keefe. When you look at what Ben Crump talked about there, I'm going to go back to our panel here, and I'm going to start with you, Matt. When you look at what he talked about here, I mean, he's right. You continue to have these cases of police brutality. You have cases like this where the family is like, wait a minute, hold up. Like, is there a real investigation going on? And folks simply want answers. And unfortunately, we continue to have this sort of blatant disregard for the concerns and the feelings of these black families. And you got to ask yourself the question, do you see this happen with non-black folks?
You don't. And I know that you're saying that is kind of the question that you extrapolate from that, but that's the truth. I feel like a lot of times you don't. You know, it's a difficult thing, especially in cases that are not straight ahead for the police. Oftentimes they don't do a good job of communicating to families what it is they're actually trying to accomplish. But, you know, frankly, the corollary here is just like in the medical context. There are a lot of black people who have said historically, I know something's wrong. I tell the doctor, she doesn't believe me, and I find out later that I was right. There was something wrong. The same is true with a lot of these cases. And sometimes the police, in my experience as a prosecutor, a lot of times they get a very simple, myopic view on a case, and they will not go beyond that simple, myopic view. And when it relates to black people, particularly something like Javion McGee, right? The family says, we know him. He is not the kind who would do this. They don't start with that premise. They start with the easy decision, which is, we believe he went to Walmart and bought a rope. And here's the reality. Sometimes the evidence will bear that out. But oftentimes police dealing with black families, at least in my experience, will start with the premise that either there wasn't a crime or that what the family is telling them is not correct and won't work from the standpoint of perhaps it's true. And in the instance of a young man like Javion McGee, that is such a thing that is so stark and so jarring that, you should start with the premise that there is likely criminal activity afoot here and not necessarily a suicide unless you've got compelling evidence to that end. So I've seen that in my own career, that police do this. But I will say, to be fair and balanced, a lot of times people's expectations of how quickly an investigation should happen or how quickly they should get information are not always realistic. And sometimes that gulf between is what you see reported in the news and what creates a lot of the issues, because frankly, for law enforcement to be able to do their jobs, they do also have to have the ability to investigate. And sometimes their inability to communicate what they're finding or what they're working on and to do so quickly is what creates the issue. So I think one of the big issues is there has to be better transparency and there has to be a better system of communicating to families. We are, in fact, working hard on this issue. And I think both things can be true. But I have seen that police often do not take black families' complaints at face value and investigate those with the idea that, in fact, there may be something criminal afoot. But I will say, as it relates to Javion McGee, I saw that Jason Keith posted that on his Instagram. And they've got a very, very strong, solid team of people who will investigate and get to the bottom of that. So God willing, there will be answers for that family sooner than later.
And the reality is this here, Kelly, when we look at this election, you have a man in Donald Trump who has made it perfectly clear. He wants immunity for all cops, 100% immunity. He wants to bring back stop and frisk. So for any black person, male or female, especially brothers, considering voting for Donald Trump, let's be real clear. He gets back in the Oval Office, there's a bullseye on your back in every single community, because he will let cops do what have their way with black people.
For sure. And that's terrifying. But something that also you need to consider is if cops have full immunity in the way that Donald Trump has been touting that he will do once he becomes president, what does that say about accountability between the law enforcement departments themselves? What if you have a dirty cop and he kills another cop? You understand what I'm saying? It goes so far beyond just us, right? There are black cops who could be susceptible to legislation that will do something like that, right? It like, you can't hide behind a badge. You can't hide behind your job. This isn't something that will just be affecting us civilians. This affects other cops too. It affects all of us. And the fact that this orange Mussolini man just simply does not comprehend the power that he wields accurately anyway. I just feel like he feels like he's a rich kid who just has a bunch of toys to play with, and the toys just happen to be the government. You understand? And the gravamen of this office, like the gravity, the weight, the prestige of this office is just frankly eradicated should this man come in again, just because, he gave you $1,200 that one time that he didn't even do, by the way. Or, you feel like, oh, the economy is so bad and it was so much better under him. Well, he inherited Obama's economy. Of course it was better. Like, there are so many excuses that I'm hearing about why people are going to vote for him, and all of them can be debunked with straight facts and, frankly, just a modicum of common sense that needs to be utilized ASAP so that, terrorism doesn't happen. Domestic terrorism doesn't happen in this country.
And again, Michael, what voters need to understand, especially black voters, Donald Trump does not give a damn about police accountability. Remember, his Justice Department, they wanted to pull back on consent decrees. And so folks can sit here and dance around this stuff and play games with it. When he is openly talking about bringing back stop and frisk, that right there is a non-starter. No one should be remotely consider voting for this fool.
Well, any black person considering voting for Donald Trump needs to have their head examined. They're out of their minds and don't understand history, don't understand politics. Donald Trump in April 2024 said he would give police 100% immunity from criminal prosecution for doing their job. When he was at the National Association of Black Journalists, and Rachel Scott asked him about Sonia Massey, they asked him about Sonia Massey. He didn't have a good answer about what would happen to the officer who shot and killed Sonia Massey. Okay, and when you look at this, you have Attorney Benjamin Crump there. We know the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed the House of Representatives by a vote of 220 to 212. No Republicans voted for the bill. It was Senator Tim Scott who blocked it. But what people have to understand is a lot of white people in this country think the police department is working just the way it's supposed to work. And now you have attack ads that Republicans have launched attacking Vice President Kamala Harris for saying the protests during when the protests were happening after the killing of George Floyd. She said, these were peaceful protesters. The majority of the protests were peaceful, even though you did have, some fires here and there to take place. The majority of the protests were peaceful. A different approach has to be taken with this, okay? Because a lot of the majority of the people in the House and the Senate that got to vote for a bill that reforms police are white. And they represent a lot of white people that think things are just fine right now. You got to talk about the white people who have been unjustly shot and killed by police as well. Elevate those stories. Bring those white crying mothers into Senate hearings. Have them testify. Bring those pictures of those white people unjustly killed by white people as well. The way that they're approaching this, if you just make this a black thing, you're going to lose, because most of the people who vote for this are white. They represent constituents who think, a lot of them think everything is just fine the way it is.
Everything. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the online history classes that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history. I teach 2 online history classes, Saturdays 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. and Sundays 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Saturdays is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And then on Sundays, Black resistance movements, from Christopher Columbus to the Haitian Revolution and the Black Power movement, 1492 to 1968. So we have classes coming up this weekend. Classes on sale, $80. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it any time. We have a bundle pack of courses. You can register for both classes also. I do a PowerPoint presentation with book references, articles, video clips. Even after the course is over with, you still have access to the full class. You can go back and watch it anytime. And then Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding transatlantic slave trade. That meets this weekend also. You can we have the course outline here that you can download as well. So it gives you a lesson plan for each class session. There's about 100 articles that we reference. The first class is about 200 slides, 15 books that we reference. You don't have to buy any of the books to follow along in class. Click right here to download the lesson plan also, okay? I show you it's a very visual class, so I show you the excerpts of the books right on the screen, all right? Okay, so the content is PG-13. You can use this with your children as well. I don't do a lot of cursing. It's not overly vulgar or anything like that. It's nothing like that, okay? Let me see. I just want to make sure I get through all these.